Hello again, this is Rich Troxler, aka Rich Trox, and welcome to another edition of my Reading the Beach videos. When it comes to catching fish consistently, being able to read water and beach structure is a valuable asset. I've put out several videos on the subject already, and once you've developed your water reading skills, you'll never look at water the same way again. In this video, I'm going to do something a little different. I frequently get asked, what's the point of reading water? Why not just tell me where the fish are? I've addressed this in previous videos by saying that it's your job to know your local predatory species' habits and the baits they feed on, and while I believe this to be true, upon giving it some thought, it comes across much like a Microsoft support answer, that being technically correct but fairly useless. So as part of my Practice Makes Perfect series of videos, I've decided to make companion videos for each one that show you how I would fish these structures for the species I fished for on both Long Island and now currently in Virginia Beach. Before I go any further, let me get the disclaimer out of the way. The information provided on this video is based exclusively on my own experiences and should not be considered the be-all and end-all of fishing. It is intended solely to stimulate thought, provide direction, and encourage experimentation, in the sincere hope that it may be of help to you on your surf fishing journey. End of disclaimer. I'm assuming that you have already watched the video Practice Makes Perfect 2, the Nondescript Beach, and if you haven't, you should do so before watching this video so that you'll understand what I'm talking about structure-wise. Assuming that they are in season and around in catchable numbers, the species I will fish for is as follows. In the predatory class I put striped bass, red drum, puppy drum, bluefish, and fluke and flounder. There are other predatory species like black drum, trout, cobia, and various sharks, but these are typically incidental bycatch for me, and I don't actively fish for them. For smaller fish, there's assorted panfish like spot, croaker, northern kingfish, what they call roundhead down here in Virginia. There are a bunch of others that I don't fish for, and all are very good eating, but I generally only fish for spot for use as bait for large red drum in the fall. So now that the species list is set, let's move on. So let's take a look at what we got. This bird's eye view shows the layout of the whole viewable beach. As the previous companion video showed, this stretch of beach does not have a lot to offer structure-wise, so your options are limited. There are no sandbars, and all you have is what appears to be some old eroded points that have basically been flattened out into shallow areas. I say old points because the shoreline is not deeply scalloped, nor does it have any high build areas typically associated with points. All you have is a shallow area next to a deeper area. I parked myself and my camera in the spot that I would spend most of my time fishing, although one of the commenters on my channel had the insight to suggest that there would be other transition points to fish, and he was correct. The key term here is transition point, or more commonly known as an edge. Edges are always key, and a few edges are all that this stretch of beach has to offer. Edges come in many forms, and I'm not going to go into detail on explaining them all now, but I do explain them in detail in my other videos, so if you want more information on them, it's all there for you. So when you only have a few bits of structure on an otherwise bland, nondescript beach, then that's where you want to focus your efforts. Fish follow edges like a shadow. They cruise along edges like roads, and there are a lot of reasons for this. Again, I explain this in detail in other videos, but the short version is that edges offer feeding advantages to both predator fish and smaller bait fish. For example, smaller bait fish will wait along the edge for small mollusks, clam spat, marine worms, and other edibles that get kicked up out of the sand from breaking waves to get washed down the sides of the shallow water into the deeper water. Moving up the food chain, larger predator fish will attempt to ambush the smaller bait while their attention is on feeding, or take advantage of smaller bait fish being flushed from the shallows by wave wash. So a lot takes place along an edge, and that's where you want to fish. While one of the posters on my channel pointed out that other edges existed, such as the one where the deeper water to the south ran up against another group of shallows, I will only be focusing on the edge in front of me, as it appears to be the most pronounced. The only thing that would have made me look at another area was if the prevailing ocean sweep was strong and pushing up into the shallow area. The preference is to have the sweep coming off the shallow area into the deeper area. This day there was only mild sweep running from shallow to deep. To fish this area will not take a lot of explanation. With conditions the way they were, for red drum I would be lobbing spot or mullet heads or chunks right along the transition from shallow to deeper water, aka the edge. For striped bass, I would be lobbing bunker heads or chunks in the same place. With the surf the way it was, I might also opt to throw a bottle plug or fish a bucktail. For bluefish, I would throw tens and diamond jigs and reel them fast. Bluefish like speedy and shiny. If you like big popping plugs, they'll oblige them also. For all of the above, and with those conditions, I would also stray up onto the shallow areas a little and into the deeper water a little. Basically cover the whole area thoroughly. For puppy drum, I would stick with lead heads and rubber tails, and for fluke, aka flounder, I would fish bucktails tipped with gulp 4-inch white mullet along the edge at various depths starting very shallow. I would also change my angle as much as possible to pull the lead heads or bucktails off the shallow area into the deeper water area. I would also spend a little time walking the deeper water area fishing tight to shore right up to the lip. Action right behind the first or second shore break wave can be surprisingly good at times. I might try some variations on a theme, but basically I'm not moving from that area. And as the tide begins to recede, I really stay focused on the edge and adjacent deeper water. Short of an all-out bait blitz that runs down the shore and is gone in minutes, anything that is going to happen will happen here at this edge. As for panfish, it's pretty much fish bites bloodworms for me. Spot love them as well as most every other panfish that swims the ocean front and bays, so I always keep them on hand. No special techniques are needed for panfish, just small hooks and a sinker. If there's water enough, there will be plenty of panfish, so I won't waste any more time on them. That pretty much sums up my moves for this particular stretch of beach. There weren't a lot of options here, but there is always one place on every beach that is better than all the rest. So where are the fish? Where should you throw your bait? That's the $64 question. Hopefully this has given you a general idea of how I would fish this structure and provided you with a little insight into my thought processes. As I've said before, being able to read a beach can make all the difference between success and failure in surf fishing. It's one of the most important tools you can have in your toolbox. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button in the lower right corner. I'll be following this video with another beach reading video very soon. So stay tuned and remember, practice makes perfect. That's my view from the beach. So until next time, be well and catch 'em up.